sat in one of the suites in the main stand, and after the fanfare of the night before at the Foundation of Hearts event, he told the press, "I think we've got a very good chance of at least being second this season." I remember sitting in that room, eyebrows being raised, and I think I might have had a beaming smile on. But here we are. On Sunday, Hearts have the opportunity to open up an 8-point lead over Celtic. Hello and welcome to the Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked and I'm delighted to be joined by Scott McIntosh to look ahead to this weekend's game. The apologies for those who have, Pete Roman says, running late again, Joel. Technical difficulties, says Groove True Bass.
My fault this time. I'll take the bullet this time. It was me.
I think it was both of us because I started asking you questions. So we're just having a gab about different things. So that's why we are late. But Scott, we're here to look ahead to Sunday in the Celtic game. And firstly, how are you? And secondly, how are you feeling as we sit, less than 72 hours out, I think, if that's right.
Yeah, feeling really good. I said this just prior to us coming on here, just sort of living weekend to weekend just now and game to game. Just sort of looking forward to the next match, and because it's a Saturday to a Sunday now, it's just slightly longer away. But it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to have that. It's been a while since we've been feeling that way towards the team, and really feel confident about Sunday. There's things we'll touch upon in the next half an hour in terms of what we'll need to do to make sure that we get a result and what potentially Celtic might do, but this is as confident as you can feel going into a game against the Old Firm, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was at Football Cliches last night, and I was speaking to a Hearts fan I've spoken to a few times over the last couple of months, and we were just talking about talking about how watching this, and he's like, I'm saying it's like try not to get carried away, but it's really hard not to and get too excited about it. Groove Tube Bass says, can't help it. I've allowed myself to get excited about Sunday. I've been the Roseburn giving it loud. I hope this optimism doesn't come back and bite us. Mon the Hearts. So we're going to preview the game because I am a clown. People who listen and watch this will probably have known that by now. I deleted the question had saved for this one from the other the show I did with Craig earlier in the week. So please fire any thoughts / comments in the comment section, and I'll try and cover as many as possible as we go through it. But before we get into it, Hearts Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. So let's get this out of the way first, Scott. The starting lineup, same as the previous four?
Yeah, I think so. I think too many questions would be asked if we deviated from that and didn't get the desired result off the back of it. And I think the one or two players who could influence a change in the selection aren't available or probably fully fit just now. I think if you look at Borchgrevink and Adu, they're probably the two players just now that would maybe dictate a change in formation or personnel. But because the two of them have just only recently came back into training, I'd imagine a place on the bench is as good as it'll get for them this Sunday. They might be considered for the two following games after that. So I think you've got to go with the sort of 4-4-2/4-2-4 just now, even although I think there still is one or two issues there, and with the personnel, I wouldn't say that's a long-term first 11 I want to see. But I think just now, given the momentum that we've got just now as a team, I would probably stick with that for Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone knows there's further evolution to come from this team, both in terms of players who are already here and players to come in January or further, potentially January on, and then like next summer as it evolves even further. How big a part will the subs play, do you think, in this game?
Yeah, I think they'll play a big part because I think similar to the Kilmarnock game, a lot of what's going to happen might boil down to the second half and the game being a little bit stretched naturally at that stage. I'm not expecting a huge start to this game. I think Celtic, given how they've been approaching games, it's going to be slightly passive from them. And I think from our end, we won't want to create spaces that other teams haven't against Celtic recently and make it easier for them. So I think it could be a bit of a sort of, not tough opening 45 minutes, but maybe more of a competitive 50-50 where it's just about, making sure that you're shutting down the space in between your defence and your midfield, and just making sure that you're quite rigid, and then allowing those match winners that we do have either starting or on the bench to sort of have an impact going into the second half. I hope it goes differently to that. I hope we can hit the ground running and get an early goal, but I do think there'll be strands, elements to how we performed against Kilmarnock you might see again on Sunday.
Yeah, Dave McGee says IQ come on second half and tear them apart, and that's a big thing. Is that I would just reiterate is that so IQ return to training this week. There'll be a bit going up on Heart Standard tonight at 10:30. Just McInnes talking about him. Don't expect him to start, and I do as long as he trains fine for the rest of the week. Do expect him to be on the bench, and then you've got again. You said like Borchfrink. There's going to be big. Like the big decisions are not so much the starting 11 at the moment. It's probably those who are on the bench. Now I will take this away. There's a couple of good questions about the. There we go. Where are we? Stu, I'll start with Dave 123. Really looking forward to Sunday. Only worry is Celtic's 3 in the middle versus our 2. Stu says can't see Dell changing the starting 11. Milne might be required to help out Devlin and Benny in midfield as Celtic look to dominate the ball in midfield. Is that something that should be wary of? Should be.
I can't see him seeing Celtic playing that way and playing through the midfield just now. I think they are trying to get the ball out into the wide areas. They're trying to get their wide men involved in the game as much as possible. And that's, again, it's been a huge hindrance to their performances so far through not having the right personnel, i.e. Alistair Johnson's been a big miss for them down that right-hand side. They've been trying to integrate new wide men into the team like Taneke and Balakwisha as well. Kieran Tierney's still not maybe at 100% fitness levels as well. So I think they are trying to get width in their team and not quite play, through the midfield. So it's not something I'm overly worried about. And on a tight park like Tynecastle, I think you can go 2 against 3 and you can match up against them. I think that's something you can do. I also expect Lawrence Shanklin to drop at times and maybe not so much do a man marking job on McGregor, but maybe just shadow him at times when McGregor's trying to receive the ball from the 2 centre halves, because that's still a huge part of Celtic's game, is those 3 trying to move the ball and then get up to the rest of the team as quickly as possible. So I think Shanklin will drop into a bit of a sort of number 10 position at times when we don't have the ball. Yeah,
that's something that Craig and I are going to record a video tomorrow. Probably put out Saturday because he's looking into how Hearts and Celtic compared to the start of the season, kind of statistically, but he's also looking at key battles and spoke to him this morning, and that was one he was going to look at. He was going to look at basically Kizaridis and whoever's going to be playing right back. Could be Alistair Johnson, could be Tony Ralston, and then Ian Atchell against, I think it was against Halkett. But I think the most interesting one is Shankland on McGregor. I always feel that if you stop McGregor, you stop Celtic. And I think that's like kind of increasingly so, just because of how they are, how they're set up. So that's kind of one area where I see it's really important. And then McLovin says, given Celtic have failed to score in opening 25 minutes, is that a tactical choice to start slow? Is it jitters? And given that, should we go gung ho? So off the back of that, what do you think is key to success on Sunday, Scott? And is it, for me, what the way we start the match and how we engage the fans is, I find that one really crucial. If we can almost spook Celtic.
Yeah, I understand that viewpoint. What I would say though is, if McLovin was to look at the games in which Celtic have failed to score in those opening stages, they're probably going up against teams that are setting up with a 5-4-1 system. So Dundee, all they were interested in doing first half on Sunday was just making sure that there was no gaps in between their midfielders and their defenders. They were shutting down that. They weren't pressing the game until Celtic got into their half. And then, yeah, they hit them on the transition a few times, and they've done really well to hit them on the counter. But it was done with defensive, keeping a defensive line in mind. And I think there might have to be an element of that to our game. I don't think we're doing really well, and we are the form team at the moment, and I completely understand why Hearts fans would want to see us going out and maybe just going for the jugular early doors to just sort of see how much Celtic want this game, given how they've been performing recently. But we're not fully there as a team. There's still elements of our team that still need to improve and evolve, and I don't want to see us making this game easy for Celtic by offering them opportunities that other teams haven't. So I do think we need to be a little bit guarded when we've got the ball. I would like to see us get the ball up to the wide men as quickly as possible. I think that's something we've suffered a little bit with that in the first half against Hibs and Kilmarnock recently.
Yep.
I would say that what their midfielders done pretty well was they were shutting down Kingsley and McAtee pretty quickly, and it was stopping us from getting the ball to Kazididis and Milne a little bit quicker than I would like to see. I'm not really expecting that for the likes of Hatate and Nigrin. I'm not really expecting them to play those sorts of midfield roles. So I would like to see us get the ball up to the wingers as quickly as possible. But I think patience is required for the fans on Sunday. And I get that it's going to be as expectant a Hearts crowd as you've probably going to have seen at Tynecastle for some time against Celtic or Rangers. But I do think we'll need to stick with the team and possibly accept that this is a game where we need to just try and win it over the 90 minutes. And it might just take a little bit of time before the game just naturally decides to sort of, stretch out for us.
I think that against Hibs, I was surprised. Like I just expected just that Hearts and those first 15 minutes in big games where it's like all kind of blood and thunder, ball going forward, challenges. I was expecting it against Hibs, but Hearts didn't really commit to when we didn't have the ball. We're kind of happy for Hibs' backline to have it rather than just a kind of full court press. And yeah, I think that's a good point, because I'm in my head just thinking, right, just go at them from the start, which leads me on to my next kind of question about what you made of Celtic, not so much in terms of how they've played, but is there a vulnerability to their kind of mentality? I look at Celtic and the Celtic teams that have come in the past where they've had big characters. I just wonder if where I'm really confident about Sunday is I'm not sure if Celtic have it within them. I'm trying not to call them soft, but Celtic have it within them to deal with what potentially Hearts, what the environment will be like. Asked Derek McInnes on yesterday about what his message to the fans would be. Some brilliant quotes. They don't come out until Saturday night or Sunday morning because they're being held over. But he was he made some really good quotes. So, kind of two-part question: and what have you made this kind of this Celtic and that side of the game, and how big a part will the Hearts fans be able to play on Sunday, even though it's a 12 p.m. kickoff on a Sunday, as Gavaldo says. Just wish it wasn't. Yeah, 5:45 on a Saturday would have been tasty.
But if we get a result, there's more of the day to enjoy the game as well.
Exactly.
So that's the way to look at it. That's a positive way of looking at a 12 p.m. kickoff on a Sunday. I think one of the biggest differences I've noticed with this current iteration of Celtic compared to even just 8 or 9 months ago is it's the lack of a counter press. If you think back to that Postecoglou team and even the team that Rodgers inherited in his first season, you had Kyogo, you had Maeda playing out wide, you had the likes of Jota or Kuhn, and they would suffocate your defenders. Like, they would make it so difficult to play out for the back. They really lack that intensity now from the press. And it is making it easier now for teams to transition against them. And you could even see a team like Dundee, who have, they've not had their shortages of challenges to seek this season. Even Dundee were able to sort of play against that counter press at times on Sunday. So I'm confident because I don't see a lot from the Celtic team. Now, again, you can always hark back to the argument about if you look at it on an individual basis and CVs and on paper and all this other stuff, Celtic have stronger players. Celtic maybe potentially have a stronger team. But on form just now, all the form players are playing in one colour just now on Sunday. And it's not the Celtic players. And that's the attitude we should have. We should still give them respect as a club and a championship winning club, but we should have belief in ourselves because we are the ones who are, riding this cresty wave of momentum just now. And I think that's something the fans just have to hang on to. They have to remind ourselves that we've won a lot of games this season in the second half of games, or in the case of the Motherwell game, rescued a game in the second half. And if you look at the impact that the likes of Braga and that have had, it's predominantly been in the second half of games as well, when the game is that little bit more stretched. So I think we need to try and understand that. I think, going back to what you're saying about the Hibs game, the fans were really patient that night. I think what the team did well was, even although we maybe weren't overly aggressive in our press, we did play the formation like a 4-2-4, which meant that we were pinning their wing backs back, which meant that they had to go long, which they... let's face it, they don't really want to do against Halkett and Finlay. And I'd imagine Celtic will be even less inclined to want to do that. Iheanacho wants to play almost like a 10. He wants to come short. He wants to get involved in the game. So if we can push Celtic's fullbacks into going long, then that means that we're hopefully not going to see too much threat coming our way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll bring in some comments here. Is that Adam says they haven't recruited well. They are weak in forward and fullback areas, albeit that improves if Maeda and Johnson are available. I think that's a big thing for Sunday. It's about the availability around Maeda and Johnson. Too much reliance on old heads, McGregor, Forrest and Kieran Tierney. What else have we got? Stu suggest, will Celtic rest players tonight for the game on Sunday? That's a really interesting. I think that'll be an interesting one to see the starting 11 tonight. I would argue that Sunday is perhaps a bigger game for Celtic than it is tonight.
Potentially keep Johnston free for Sunday. He's obviously not going to be able to play 2 games in the space of 4 days, given he's just coming back from an injury. I think he's only been back training maybe just over a week. The talk about Maeda is that he's going to be out. They don't seem overly positive that Maeda is going to be back for tonight or Sunday. Which
he didn't train this week.
He's a challenging start to the season, but he would still be their biggest threat in terms of that final third. They have brought new players in. I was talking about this with Mark at the start of the week on the podcast, and I was talking about the fact that there might come a point on Sunday where we may have to react to something Celtic do, because there's a couple of games now where they've switched formation at half-time. They've done it against Dundee. They also done it against Braga at home, where they decided to go with a 3 at the back. Now, again, I don't think that's a natural fit for Celtic, because they were then having to play wingers in the wide-back roles. But that might be something we might have to keep an eye on Sunday. I think because Rodgers is now hitting this stage where he's just trying to find a answer to what's going on, he may decide to sort of just throw a bit of a curveball there and go for a formation change.
Yeah, because that was the one that I think the big quote from Rodgers the other day was about the Honda Civic and the Ferrari. Yeah. But I think what was perhaps overlooked was he talked about solutions and having to go maybe 4-4-2 or 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. So I do think that will be really interesting to see tonight, and then come up to, and then on Sunday. Tulloch Gorham says Sturm Graz are in red hot form. If Celtic get cuffed tonight, they may turn up at Tynecastle in full crisis mode. Interesting times. And it reminded me of the question, one of the questions we got on Monday, and this is just off this. I think it was basically off the Celtic team, how many would get into the Hearts 11?
Well, it's difficult because
there's a couple that I would certainly suggest.
Well, this is the thing. So, firstly, you have to take into consideration the manager situation at both clubs just now. Derek McInnes is where he wants to be. Brendan Rodgers is currently in the process of trying to work his ticket. I think he's near or less checked out, and the further we could potentially pull away from them, he will start to think, if I stay here any longer, what does that do to my reputation in terms of trying to get another gig down south? So I think he's already halfway out the door. I think some of the players are already halfway out the door alongside him. They do have a big issue just now. And there used to be a time where you would worry when Celtic were maybe a bit of a wounded animal. You would worry about what backlash you were going to get from them. But I just think they're on a downward spiral just now. And although they will still get results at times, I do feel that in these bigger games, they're really struggling to match the intensity of other sides. And I can't see that changing just because we're Hearts and they're Celtic. That seems to be the big argument just now for people saying Celtic will win on Sunday. It's just that that's what normally happens. But this is a Derek McInnes Hearts team. They haven't played that Derek McInnes Hearts team before. I think if you think about which Celtic players could make it in the Hearts team, there is a few. Let's be honest. They've still got some decent players in there. And I think in the right formation, the right blend to complement other players. You could have said that a Hibs fan could have turned around to us last year and went, well, I wouldn't have Lauren Shankland, I wouldn't have Benny, I wouldn't have Cammy, wouldn't have Craig Halkett in my team. And you know what? Last season, that's fine, that's valid, because what they are seeing week to week is those players struggling. But the reason those players were struggling because there wasn't the attacking impetus to complement what they could offer in the team. And Celtic have that same issue. Cal McGregor's still a really good footballer. Rio Otati's still a really good footballer. Carter Vickers and Scales are still, decent centre halves. The problem is that front three. Like they've downgraded so much on that. I mean, Taneke got a few plaudits for his first couple of performances, but he's not adding numbers to his game. He's not adding assists or goals to his game. And if you actually look at his record over the last couple of years prior to training for Celtic, both he and Balikwisha don't really have great numbers. You could probably make an argument that if Rangers sort things out, if Danny Rowe proves to be the right pick for Rangers, Rangers have got more firepower in that front three than Celtic do. So Celtic's issue just now is what's behind them rather than what's ahead of them, because until January, they can't fix the problem. And he seemed really reluctant to even try and attempt to use somebody like Shin Yamada, who quite clearly was a club signing rather than a manager signing. So this is why I'm confident about Sunday. Although Celtic still have a threat, they don't have that cohesion or balance to the first 11 that we do just now. So if we turn up and perform and have the right mentality, we should win this game.
That's a big thing. You hit on nail on the head with the front three. They just don't have a fear factor where you've turned up to 4 and they've got whether it was like go back a few seasons, Scott Sinclair or Kyogo was just knew he was going to score. They just don't have that. And with the way you're talking about the situation at Celtic with Rodgers kind of working his ticket and the comments he makes, it feels to me there's strong comparisons to the COVID season where it was Lennon and they had the nonsense in Dubai. They had the fans protesting outside empty Celtic Park, chucking plastic sharks and railings as well.
I would even argue this is worse. I think if you look at that Celtic team compared to now, that Celtic team play this Celtic team off the park. They still had a lot of talent in that Celtic squad then. They had issues with mentality and maybe the COVID thing and not having fans maybe had some part of an impact on it as well, because you can see the positive impact it had on the Rangers players who would struggle to play in front of big crowds. They all flourished in that sort of 12-month spell. So that might have hindered them. I'd say they're in a worse state just now than they were during the COVID season. I would say they're on a complete downward spiral and they're going to need a big rebuild, regardless of how this league campaign pans out over the next few months. They've got a manager who's working his ticket and there's a lot of players that have come to a natural end to their time at the club as well.
Just before we finish up, Old Told Records says, will they throw their balls on the park at the start? Probably. And Stu makes a good point. Hearts players better not help the Celtic players clear any balls away that might throw in. Let them clean that crap up on their own. It's a very good point. I'll just read out a few questions and I'll have one last one for you, Scott. Stu says, don't know about others, but if Hearts keep up this type of form, I'll be getting regular calls from HR with regards to my work productivity. Wee Man Wanjos, I've never felt this confident about Hearts facing Celtic. It doesn't feel natural. Stu also says this week is really dragged. Feels like a build-up to a cup final. I'll save that one to the end. Brian Ferrier, hi guys, do you think Agu will start against Celtic? No. Is that McLovin, wishing my weekend away to watch Hearts, especially against the Old Firm. What has happened? And so Stu says Hearts are still 12-5 to win on Sunday, which is absolutely mental.
I think somebody was saying Sturm Graz are 5-1 to win tonight.
Where's my phone so I can put money on it?
Which is incredible. I don't know if that's the case now, but a couple of days ago, I was watching something and they were talking about the odds on Sturm Graz. And look, Sturm Graz aren't a great side, but they can move the ball vertically very quickly. They have that direct style that you see in the Austrian leagues just now. And on a big park like Parkhead, and with the fact that most of Celtic's midfielders don't like running back the way, I think Sturm Graz could easily catch them on the break a few times tonight. I thought they were ridiculous odds.
It's why can't it? 21-4 on Bet365. We're not sponsored by Bet365, but that was the first. That was the first app that came to my hand on my phone. So yeah, that's maybe Sturm Graz Hearts double. One to think about. So kind of last thing I wanted to ask was, so Adam makes a point here. Key is getting as much points on the board as possible between now and the year end, regardless of Sunday. Celtic have a trio of attacking players heading to AFCON in December. They will be weak till January. Leads me into ask. And getting ahead of myself, what would a win on Sunday mean beyond going 8 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership?
Yeah, I think it would probably mean that the discussions around our title challenge would step up again quite significantly. I think also amongst the support this time. I know there's been there's all the chanting, everyone's embracing it at the games, but I still think the majority of Hearts fans are still kind of just wanting to live in the moment and not worry too much.
Yeah.
I think if we get a result on Sunday, I think in a weird way, the pressure ramps up and the expectancy ramps up amongst the support, because 8 points is such a clear sort of, you know, three games effectively ahead of your nearest rivals. You've also got the way the fixtures are landing. So after the midweek games, we play against Dundee at home next week, and Celtic are in the cup. So we would be a fixture ahead of them and a chance to increase the lead. I think then the week after that, we play on the Saturday at home to United, and Celtic play on the Sunday because they've got the European games. So look, we're not trying to get too far ahead of ourselves just now, but if we get a
Sunday as well on United.
Yes. If we get a result on Sunday, we've got the chance to go into double figures at some stage over the coming weeks ahead of Celtic. It's a huge opportunity, and that's all it is. It's just an opportunity. I still think, and I said this before the Rangers game a few weeks ago, I still think if we don't get the desired result on Sunday, I still think we're still geared up to have a really good season, because I don't see this team losing many games. This is not a makeup of a team or a squad or a manager that's going to go on a long unwinning run. If we do come across bumps along the road, like we've already done with St Mirren recently, I think we will go on and win the subsequent fixtures after that. So I think that's something we need to keep in the back of our minds, regardless of how it goes on Sunday. Still think we're in line for a good season. It could still get even better in terms of the makeup of the squad come January. And due to what's happening at Celtic and Rangers just now, there isn't that pressure that would normally come to a team like us. This is the difference between us and Aberdeen, or it's one of the differences between us and Aberdeen for last season. Aberdeen had a great opening run of fixtures, 11 fixtures, the 110, they drew one, they drew at Parkhead, they beat Rangers at Pittodrie, and they done really well. But the problem was Celtic were still in their pomp. Celtic were still playing well. They still had Kyogo, they still had Kuhn. Maeda was hitting, a red-hot streaky form as well. That's not there this season. And look, it really isn't going to change for Celtic and to a smaller degree Rangers until January at the earliest. These players aren't just going to turn it on. I think the only way we lose on Sunday is if we beat ourselves. And this is what I was talking about in terms of just making it too open early doors. I know that that's what we would all love to see, but I think Derek McInnes knows that would probably be what Celtic would want as well at the start of the fixture. I think it's maybe a case of frustrating them firstly, and then taking those opportunities when we can hit them in the transition.
I thought for a second you had morphed into Derek McInnes there when you talked about the basically beating ourselves, because that's his motto. That's his motto recently. Is like our fight is against ourselves. And yeah, he's hugely. There's loads of different elements. Hugely experienced manager, someone who thought would really get it, and I think it's clearly has got it. The state of the old firm, how good the recruitment has been, how also something that needs to take into account, how reinvigorated the players who were last season, who are still part of the squad, have been, and the way they've bought into it. And then the fact that you said we should be aiming for 15 points out of 15, and I was like, right, that's us winning the league potentially with Scott's thinking that. So it's so exciting, so exciting come Sunday. The last thing I was going to say is Gavaldo says, I can't see McInnes changing anything with regard to Scottish, the starting 11, sorry. Did people catch McInnes' interview with Cy Ferry? Absolutely fantastic interview. I would recommend anyone check that out. I thought it was really, really good. Got a really good insight into Derek McInnes and loads of little nuggets about this, about Hearts, about himself, which was really, really good. Be sure to check out that. Be sure to check out Scottish Around the Funnel, also on YouTube. And I would also urge anyone to check out Liam Corbett on Sky Sports. He was on with Jamie O'Hara. Even Jamie O'Hara was behind Hearts.
Even with that Alan Brazil filter.
Yeah, he was.
I'm looking a bit red-faced, but I did catch that as well, and you can see it. Like this is a good thing for Scottish football. From a marketing standpoint, they're getting more. And again, it always had to come at the detriment to Celtic and Rangers. They were always going to have to go on a poor runny form to allow somebody else the opportunity to come in and sort of challenge them. But it's a good thing for Scottish football as a whole. I know there'll be other fans who would rather it was their team, and I would think the same thing. Last season, I would have hated the fact that Aberdeen were doing well, and I would have wanted Hearts to have been in that position, and that's only natural. But it's good that they're getting talked about in this way. And again, as long as McInnes can keep the team, their feet grounded, which he seems to have done up to this point, then all this outside noise shouldn't bother anyone, and it should just be something that we just all embrace now. And again, that is going to escalate huge. I mean, if they think that's been talked about now, if we get a result on Sunday, it'll really, because the pressure's going to start turning up on Rodgers in a week or two. You can already see it. The narrative's now slowly shifting through the board onto Rodgers and the players. And I think if they struggle over the next couple of games, that's only going to get worse as well. So hopefully we can take advantage of that opportunity. And hopefully in a few weeks' time, we're still talking about how well we're doing and, still looking forward to the fixtures ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to Sunday. The fact that they've got only a kind of small support there, the opportunities there. I've spoken to, there's over the last couple of weeks, spoken to press from down south. The people have been coming up. People came up for the derby. People come up for this game. There's so much interest in it. It's just such a exciting time. One of the most exciting times to be a Hearts fan at the moment. And if we do win on Sunday, then I'm just cautious that there might not be as much content on Hearts Standard going up on Monday as perhaps should be for such a result. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Scott, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in the conversation, listening or watching. And we'll be back at some point before Sunday, just because I'll join. Craig will be on to discuss a few things, and then roll on Sunday. Hopefully it comes very, very soon. Enjoy your weekend. Until then, goodbye.